Continuing on now with our second video demonstrating some of the ins and outs of the new style of assessment tasks. So we can see here that as I'm in part one, we've got many pages of information to go through, and I've explained how to set up your note taking for that. Now if I just take this a little bit slower, it's really important to note sometimes the website's a bit too fancy for its own good. Here on this graphic diagram I'm looking at here, I can see there's a whole bunch of information. There's actually a lot more there than actually looks. As I click on each one of these points here, it brings up new information. So just be very mindful that when you see this fancy side of things, that it's normally an indication that you do have to click things to get additional bits of information, and all of those bits of information are ultimately probably going to be important for you. So it's very important not to skip those. So we might just have a quick look at some other variations on how that might work. So this one's a bit more obvious. It shows that we've got one of 4 bits of information here, and all of these are going to be exceptionally important to me as I'm learning my information and responding to my assessment questions. I'll just have a flip through a few more pages to see if there are any other variations. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the picture here. These areas are very rarely static. They're expecting you to click on something. So if you don't do that, you're literally going to miss out on half the information, and there's no way that you could then properly answer the assessment questions or go into your business armed with the right sort of information, and that's what it's all about. So yeah, just take it easy as you're going through and be mindful of areas that look like they should be clicked. This one here is just a static picture, there's nothing to click. But it'll be somewhat obvious, I guess, that if you need to click or not, down here. Okay, and I should be taking notes of each one of those areas. Now, let's actually have a look at what would happen next. Now, we mentioned in the previous video that this one is actually quite a big body of reading, and that's only for part 1. Then we have part 2, part 3, and so on. Mercifully, part 2 is a bit shorter, 21 pages, part 3, 33 pages, part 4, 23 pages. So that's not too bad. However, that's a lot of information to take on. So once I've finished reading a part and taken all my appropriate notes for that, then what I would want to do is actually have a look at the assessments. So what I would get you to do is draw your attention to what they call formative assessments. Now, these style of assessments are typically shortish question answers where you'll be presented with a question and you're expected to provide maybe a couple of paragraph answer, maybe sometimes half a page, maybe a page, and if necessary longer, but they're typically short-ish as opposed to writing out long reports that could be thousands of words in length. So let's have a quick glance at what formative assessments look like. And this is where things are quite different from the old assessment model. When you do a part in the old assessment model, then there would be a part set up for questions for that. Here it's not done that way. All of the questions, all of the formative assessment questions, which could apply to any one of these parts, are listed here. And you can see that there's a substantial list of activities. And each activity I go to will have questions in there. So I need some sort of plan to manage that. So I've read part 1. I go to my formative assessments. Now nothing here actually indicates that these questions are for part 1. But the good news is I know that my first few activities actually will be for part 1. And because I've done my note taking, I've done my learning, I'll recognize this from the questions that are being asked. So where it says, why is it necessary to consult relevant groups and individuals or work to be allocated, and about the resources they will need. If I go back, and I'll just open up a new tab here, if I go back and check my reading from part 1, consult relative groups and individuals on the work that are allocated and resources available. Easy. So that's the good news. So we'll continue on with this video in the next video and just piece together again how we'll finish off working on these formative assessments. Then we'll start to talk about some of the other style of assessments.